Hello. To mark the recent release of Celexa Dreams on vinyl.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, here we are, this is it. This is the moment we've all been waiting for. The thing has been pressed onto not just CD, but a physical thing that has bumps in it that creates sound, and isn't that just fantastic? Okay, right, there we go. Ooh. Ring, ring. Well, there you bloody go then, eh?
I thought I'd give you guys a little bit of a run through of what my own vinyl collection looks like. I should warn you, it's not exactly the most extensive vinyl collection, and it is also vastly out of date, I guess you could say. There's a lot of records out there that I really want to get, but I just haven't been able to get in recent years because of lack of funds, it just not being on my mind, or one reason or another. This is the collection that I built up mainly through my teenage years. I always had a draw to wanting to have a vinyl collection. I don't know why. It goes back even further than that. I remember as a kid being fascinated by my dad's vinyl collection. And then you can actually see the grooves with the music. Just kind of fascinated me. It felt like a real experience to listen to an album and hold this very tactile thing. You could really look at the artwork and you could read through the lyrics. So as time's gone by, I've gradually added to this, but again, a lot of records that are missing from my collection. And I'm just going to scroll a quick list of records that I fully intend to get at some point, around about now. So yeah, there you go. It's not a massive list, you know, it's just things that I've been meaning to get. So if there's things in here that you're surprised I don't have, go back over that list and you'll probably see it in the list. So without much further ado, let's take a quick gander as to what we've got going on here. Should we start from the top, gradually work our way to the bottom? So these boxes are kind of divided up into three very loose, overarching categories. And I emphasize the word loose because sometimes things have ended up kind of mixed around a bit. This top box here is generally filled with older records that are like, oh, this is an interesting bit of knick-knack. This middle box is the primary meat and potatoes of the collection. These are records that I consider to be some of my favorites, but maybe not necessarily on a rotation right now. Whereas this box down here is much more what I'm listening to these days. So what have we got going on here? This is Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Two Tribes. Anyone who knows me well enough will know that I'm pretty obsessed with Trevor Horn and his production. So obviously I'm going to be a big fan of Frankie Goes to Hollywood. There is a remix on here called the Carnage Mix. And that's one of my favorite remixes of the track Two Tribes. It's basically the instrumental version of the track, followed by the vocal, non-instrumental version of the track. Depeche Mode, Pain That I'm Used To, great track. This is, believe it or not, this is a 7-inch single record, but it's shaped, as you can see, in the shape of the IQ logo. And Jesus Christ, look at that. Go Moog, smash hits, synthesizer style. Chopin, Piano Concerto No. 1, as well as Liszt, Piano Concerto No. 1. More Chopin. Look at that artwork. Look at this, the blockiness. Pixelated artwork. They were ahead of their time. This was released in 1986. Okay, never mind. Now this is a cool little tidbit. So this is a 10-inch release of the Barry Gray Orchestra and the soundtrack to such hits, such Jerry Anderson hits as The Thunderbirds, Captain Scarlet, Stingray, and Joe 90. I think I found this at a Portobello Market one day. and I thought, you know what? Why the hell not? I don't own any other 10-inch records. I wish I did, but this is the extent of my 10-inch record collection. I am just not the biggest ELP fan, but this is a classic album and I love the packaging because it's just, look at that. Isn't that just completely over the top? It's just so extravagant. Now I would say I wish more bands did things like this these days, but we all know that no one can afford to do something like this these days. It's ridiculous. How much do you think this cost them back in the day? King Crimson, Discipline. 80s King Crimson, you would think I'd enjoy them. John Lennon, Imagine. What is this? Oh wow. It has a poster in the packaging. We've got Metallica, Enter Sandman. This is the 12-inch single release of Enter Sandman, where we've got Enter Sandman on the whole of side 1, and then side 2 we've got Holier Than Thou, Work in Progress, Stone Cold Crazy, originally recorded by Queen, and then a demo of Enter Sandman, released in 1991. We're not going to go over that. Moog Party Time, the new exciting sounds of the Moog synthesizer. Wow, featuring Popcorn. Switched On Rock, the Moog Machine. It's another Moog synthesizer album. We've got everything from Jumpin' Jack Flash to Hey Jude, reproduced on a Moog synthesizer. Imagine living in a world where that is just a novelty. My Bloody Valentine, Loveless. This album is so overrated. Moody Blues, Days of Future Past, classic album from Dire Straits. Queen, Greatest Hits. Refugee, consisting of Brian Davison, Lee Jackson, and Patrick Moraz. I think my favourite track on this album would probably be Rhythmically. It's an instrumental track. It's just such a cool little jam. Like, it feels like it belongs in a car chase, but no one has really heard of it. No one talks about it. No one recognises it. Well, I say no one. Welcome to 1984. This is Now That's What I Call Music 4. So we've got Paul McCartney, Giorgio Moroder, Bronski Beat, John Waite, Michael Jackson, Lionel Richie, Thompson Twins, Heaven 17, Queen, Status Quo, U2, OMD, Nick Kershaw, Kim Wilde, Malcolm McLaren, Eurythmics, Rockwell, Level 42, UB40, Ray Parker Jr. This is literally just like the perfect album. But yeah, talk about early days of Now That's What I Call Music. They really crammed a lot on each side. Each side has got like 7-8 tracks on it. Obviously audiophile quality wasn't exactly the highest of priorities, but Kool and the Gang. Twice as Cool, the hits of Kool and the Gang. Celexa Dreams, test pressings. These are the test pressings of Celexa Dreams, both side 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. I received these back in August, I think, and when I heard them, I thought, yes, this is indeed vinyl, and yes, it sounds very good. So yes, press them, do the thing. Japanese pressing of Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Welcome to the Pleasure Dome. Obviously Trevor Horn doing his magic. This has got some interesting bits. We've got like a couple of inserts going on here, including the lyrics in Japanese. Led Zeppelin 4 features such classics as Black Dog, Rock and Roll, Stairway to Heaven, When the Levee Breaks. Like, this is
Find it on Spotify.
Tame Impala, Inner Speaker. This is their debut album, came out in 2010. I remember a friend of mine introduced me to Tame Impala, and I was instantly hooked, and I thought, oh my god, what on earth am I hearing right now? It's like the hipster thing to say, but this was when they were relatively small. This is when not really many people listened to Tame Impala, and now they're like one of the biggest bands in the world, so that's funny when that happened. Arcade Fire, The Suburbs, yes. Oh, there's so many good tracks. Sprawl 2, The Suburbs. This is a fantastic album. I need to listen to this album again. Why have I not listened to this album? in so long. Arcade Fire, Neon Bible, another amazing album. I think my favourite track on Neon Bible would probably be No Cars Go. Absolutely anthemic track, and every time I hear it I just wish it was longer. Or is that the Prog Sensibilities? Is that the anyways, one of my favourite albums of all time, masterpiece from beginning to end. Depeche Mode, Violator, featuring such classics as Personal Jesus, Enjoy the Silence, World in My Eyes, a picture disc of Marillion's Clutching at Straws. I know it's the basic bitch choice, but this and Misplaced Childhood are definitely my two favourite Marillion albums. I do like Hogarth albums, I do, don't get me wrong. Radiohead, OK Computer, it seems to be slightly divided amongst a certain community. You either love it or you hate it. An absolutely incredible album. What would my favourite track be, honestly? Karma Police, Paranoid Android, Radiohead, but a little bit more straightforward and songy. Still love this album just as much. Look how 90s that design is. I love it. Favorite tracks on this album, probably Just. Yeah, probably just. Pablo Honey. Obviously this is the album with Creep on it. Very underrated album. People do not talk about this album enough. I know some people aren't the biggest fan of it. Foo Fighters, Wasting Light. I love this album, and is another album that I have not heard in too long. It's just, every track is so good. Rope. Okay, my highlights of the album: Rope, Dear Rosemary, Arlandria, These Days. I mean, that's almost half the album right there. A Matter of Time. I Should Have Known. Oh, I Should Have Known. Oasis, What's the Story, Morning Glory, featuring Berwick Street on the cover, which is actually where a lot of these records are from. Right there on the left. It's not called that in the cover, because obviously this was taken in the 90s, but Sister Ray used to be there. I know it's moved across to somewhere over here now, but Sister Ray, the big record store, used to be right here, and a lot of these records are from there. Regardless of the cover being very iconic, I just love this album. I think it's a masterpiece. I think this album is genuinely a masterpiece from beginning to end. This has got Roll With It, Wonderwall, Don't Look Back in Anger, Hey Now, Some Might Say, Cast No Shadow, She's Electric, Morning Glory, Champagne Supernova. This album is an absolute masterpiece. Oasis, Don't Believe the Truth. Less of a masterpiece, but it's a fun album. We're getting into the Beatles section of the collection now. This is going to be a little bit out of order in terms of the chronology of the Beatles releases, but Beatles, Abbey Road. Need I say more? Beatles, White Album. I love this album. It's probably their most experimental. Beatles, Let It Be. Beatles, Revolver. Sgt. Pepper. Ooh, listen to that. I feel like I've just taken off about 50 quid off the worth of this by doing that. We've got some bits and bobs going on here. Sgt. Pepper cutouts. Isn't that cool? So you can cut these out, put that up your nose, and you've got a little moustache. A stand. A Sgt. Pepper stand. How much do you reckon this alone is worth? Beatles. Help. Beatles Magical Mystery Tour. Includes 24-page full color picture book. Look at that. It's a full color picture book of the Magical Mystery Tour. Very much a product of its time. I assume, I haven't actually read through this, but I assume it's the written down version of the movie. The novel version of the movie. War of the Worlds, Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds. This album really shaped me a lot. I think the first time I heard this album, I was definitely a kid, and I have thankfully seen it live, albeit it was the remake version a few years ago. But nonetheless, an absolutely incredible experience. Yes, Fragile, classic. Need I say more? Obviously featuring such hits as Roundabout. Yes, Tales from Topographic Ocean. Thing is, okay, I'm about to say something else controversial here. I'm not a fan of 70s Yes. I'm going to move on very swiftly. Oh yes, another Yes album. Yeah, going for the one. I mean, it's got a very extravagant cover. Oh, it's a triple gatefold. It's Jesus Christ. Yes, 90125. One of my top 10, at the very least, it's got to be in my top 20 albums of all time. As far as I'm concerned, this is a masterpiece from beginning to end, and I don't care what anyone says. I've actually got the same thing again, but it's the Japanese release. Obviously they're identical. The back is, again, exactly the same. We've got a Japanese insert with all the tracks translated into Japanese. Fleetwood Mac Rumors. I am very much yet to get Tango in the Night. It's on the list. I prefer Tango in the Night to Rumors. I know that's another controversial thing to say, but nonetheless, I still do love this album. Do not get me wrong. Fleetwood Mac, Tusk. This is a bizarre album. This is another Japanese release. I know they spent a lot of money on this, and the production is just really weird. It's not shrink wrapped, it's just in a wrapping that I can slide out of. But I'm not going to bother doing that because it would take me a million years to get it back in the wrapping. Nirvana, Nevermind, classic album, Electric Light Orchestra, On the Third Day. Now, you don't get to do that with digital downloads, do you? That's another triple gatefold kind of thing. Jesus Christ. This is an incredible album. If you are not familiar with this album, then you should get familiar with this album. From beginning to end, it is fantastic. More Trevor Horn production. ABC, Lexicon of Love. Love this album. Favorite track? Show Me. Valentine's Day is really good. Obviously, you've got Look of Love and Poison Arrow on this as well. Niles Barkley, Saint Elsewhere. This is the one that's got Crazy and smiley faces on it. Living Colour. Vivid. Featuring such classics as Cult of Personality, as well as Open Letter. Deep Purple. Machine Head. I'm not as keen on this album as I am on these two albums, which are absolute masterpieces. Kimono My House and Propaganda, as far as I'm concerned, are the two defining Sparks albums. Kimono My House featuring This Town Ain't Big Enough for the Both of Us. Tribe, Abort. They certainly aborted themselves. I can't find this album anywhere. It's not on any streaming services. I would love to listen to this album more, like when I'm out and about, because this is such a good album from beginning to end. It's kind of like 90s grunge with a little bit of progressive, definitely some progressive sensibilities, but that kind of 90s grunge sound. Paul McCartney and Wings, Band on the Run, great album. Kansas, Leftoverture, probably my favourite Kansas album. It is kind of perfect from beginning to end. Pink Floyd, Wish You Were Here. Need I Say More? Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon. Need I Say More? Pink Floyd, Metal. This has a very interesting texture to the cover. Bumpy, kind of nice leathery texture. I'm sure it felt even more leathery back in the day. Look at them in all their spiff. And then we've got the three big transatlantic albums. Jewel with the Devil is the entirety of side 1. Sweet Charlotte Pike is entirety of side 2. Bridge Across Forever is side 3. Stranger in Your Soul is side 4. And we've got a few bonuses. And that's the same with Sympty as well, in terms of each track has got their own side. Then you get to The Whirlwind. And it gets a little bit weird, because The Whirlwind is basically one continuous 77-minute long track or whatever ridiculousness it is. So to make it work, they've had to fade out some bits and then fade them back in as you flip the record. And it really takes you out of the immersion when you're listening to something to have the song fade out and then fade back in. Feels a bit wrong, you know? Hiding away in the corner. This is actually a not for sale promo copy of Pink Floyd's Wish You Were Here. Now, I'm gonna put these all back in. Right, moving on to the bottom. This is what I deem to be my more on heavy rotation. Starting from the right, Two Door Cinema Club, Tourist History. This is another album that I got into in the very early days of this band. Always loved this album, but it has been admittedly overtaken by their album Game Show. And this one came out in 2010, and it's so old that it has their MySpace link on it. You slide it up from the top, and then you notice that the text is actually on the wallet itself, and the record just consists of the cat, insert, photo, and the lyrics. Lyrics are very difficult to read because all of the O's are massive. I don't know if you can see that. Oh, there's a PSP in that photo. Ooh, we're gonna have to censor that. Okay, we did it. We did it. It's in. Michael Jackson, Thriller. Incredible album. Dream Theater, Dramatic Turn of Events, the first album that came out after Portnoy's departure. I like this album. I listened to it again recently, and I forgot how much I liked this album. Dream Theater, Scenes from a Memory, probably my favourite Dream Theater album. I mean, I don't know what to say, it's just an absolute masterpiece from beginning to end. I don't heavily rotate this, but generally speaking, I do listen to this album on other platforms, through other means a lot. And I am meaning to get the non-picture disc version of this because this is a little bit scratched up, and I'd love to frame this because it is, like, bar none, it's my favourite album of all time. So the fact that I've got it on picture disc but I don't have the normal record of it is a little bit odd. But again, would love to frame this. Can you imagine if I got like a cool round frame for this? That would look delicious. Rush, 2112. Look at them. Look at them in their kimonos. Don't they look amazing? It's them. Geddy Lee. Gareth. Got more Rush. Moving Pictures, featuring such classics as Tom Sawyer, YYZ. Rush, Permanent Waves. Favorite track, maybe Spirit of Radio or even Natural Science. Rush, Signals. Rush, Grace Under Pressure. Also available on compact disc. Wow, 1984. That must have been one of the first CD releases. Also available on chrome cassette. Caress of Steel. I really like Caress of Steel. I think it's got its moments. I like The Fountain. Rush, Farewell to Kings. Thanked their entire crew here. Like their entire touring crew is credited here. Even their chauffeur, Jorg Hordley. Wherever you are out there, Jorg Hordley. Thank you for driving Rush around. I'm sure they were never in too much of a rush. Hemispheres. Projectionist, Harry Keep the Change Dillman. Wherever you are, Harry Dillman, I'm sure you did a great job. And then Rush, Fly By Night. And then, of course, the debut. Definitely still has its place. I still love it. IQ, Road of Bones. This is a hench bit of packaging. Jesus Christ. Look at that. We've got a triple gatefold in this day and age. Tales from the Lush Attic. This is actually the original release, not the 2013 remix. 1983. IQ, Dark Matter. May potentially be my favourite IQ album, but that's up for debate. Gatefold release. This is the 2013 release of Tales from the Lush Attic. It's basically, I mean, of course it's going to be, it's basically superior in every way to the original release. This is how you do it. This is how you do a re-release. IQ, The Wake, Subterranea by IQ. This is a lovely big chunky release as well. It's got 3 vinyls in there, two that have been crammed into there, and then one in there. Muse, Absolution. Different cover, slightly. There's a little girl there. That's not what is on the CD version or the digital download version. Black Holes and Revelations, Muse. Favorite track, probably Knights of Sidonia. This is Muse live somewhere. Live in Admiral's Palast, Berlin. And if I remember correctly, this is a transparent vinyl. There you go. Muse. Showbiz. Muse. Origin of Symmetry. My favourite Muse album. Bliss. Newborn. Space Dementia. Hypermusic. Everything. Spock's Beard. This is probably my favourite of the Ted Leonard era. Brief Nocturnes and Dreamless Sleep. I love that artwork as well. Isn't that fantastic? There they are. There they are. Favourite track? Something Very Strange. The Oblivion Particle. Heavy connotations and memories associated with this album because this is the album that they toured back in 2015 when we were touring with them. Good times were had by all. And obviously alongside us and Spock's Beard were the Special Providence, the guys in Special Providence. Flying Colours, their first album. I absolutely adore this album. Stephen Wilson, The Raven That Refused to Sing, and Other Stories. 4.5, Stephen Wilson. Very underrated release. There's some great tracks on here. I think my favourite would probably be... Ooh, hello. Look at that. What's the point of having the insert facing outwards? Because the vinyl can just fall out. I guess if you put another insert inside the insert. Genesis, Duke, very much transitioning into the 80s. And I suppose this would be a good opportunity to plug our cover of Behind the Lines, which is the opening track on this album. A link to that will be up there. No, there. Genesis, Wind and Wuthering. As much as I do enjoy this album, it never stuck out as a real highlight to me. Genesis, Foxtrot, featuring Supper's Ready. Genesis, Nursery Crime. And then we come to Selling England by the Pound. This is, again, one of my favourite albums of all time. Favourite track, Firth the Fifth, or The Cinema Show. I know The Cinema Show I can categorically say has my favourite synth solo. Tony Banks is just an absolute master. Now we get into the Cardiacs portion of the collection. Cardiacs, On Land and in the Sea. This album is so insane, from beginning to end. I feel like it's Cardiacs at their most Cardiacs. Favourite track, probably Buds and Spawn. Cardiacs, Heaven Born and Ever Bright. This one isn't talked about as much. One of the lesser known Cardiacs albums. I still enjoy it. Favourite track, probably Day Is Gone. Either Day Is Gone or Goodbye Grace. And then we come to my favourite Cardiacs album, A Little Man and a House and the Whole World Window. This album, every time I listen to it, even still to this day, leaves me speechless. Just perfection from beginning to end. It's absolute madness, but it is perfection. I'm not going to pick a favourite track because it's just brilliant from beginning to end. Cardiacs, Songs for Ships and Irons. If this was actually considered an album, then it would be my second favourite Cardiacs album. But it's not considered an album, unfortunately. It's considered a compilation release. In my head, I consider it an album. And then speaking of tracks that appear on there, those tracks that appear on there appear on here. So this leaves this one a little bit redundant, but I got this one first. So yes, Cardiacs Big Ship. This is their EP that features their track Big Ship and Tarred and Feathered, which actually was the first Cardiacs track I ever heard. And we've got Sing to God, Cardiacs, which may be my third favourite if we count this as an album. Just what a trip. Last one in the collection, a real change of pace. Martika with her self-titled release, debut release Martika. This features Toy Soldiers, which I feel like everyone has heard at some point in their life. Just love the whole album. Another masterpiece in 80s pop production right here. And people don't really talk about it as much as they should. It's an incredible album. It's a very, very good album. So that's that. That's my collection. That's everything. Barring the 7 inches. I'm not gonna bother with the 7 inches. If there's anything that you think I should be getting, leave a comment below and let me know. Otherwise, as I've mentioned at the beginning of the video, I do have a list of things that I fully intend to get, and maybe I'll do an updated video at some point down the line. But otherwise, please do pick up Celexa Dreams on vinyl. This is it. This has been my vinyl collection.